What's happening with it, y'all? Eddie Hearn is back on the BS again. He's trying to shit on Errol Spence in the Terence Crawford fight. In this video, I'm going to let y'all know exactly what he said. And we're going to break down the history of Eddie Hearn hating on all big fights that he's not involved in. But before we do that, make sure that y'all hit my like button and sub to the channel if you're not already subbed to the channel. So yeah, Eddie Hearn is back at it again. Now, we all remember when Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, when they had announced that they was going to fight the first fight, not the second fight, the first fight. Remember, Eddie Hearn, he got out in front of the media. He was doing 1 million interviews and telling everybody, oh, this fight is not going to happen. I know I got inside information that Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fight is not going to happen. Because at the time, his whole thing was to make like Anthony Joshua was the only heavyweight in boxing that anybody cared about. Remember, Eddie Hearn had Anthony Joshua turn down $50 million. $50 million that Anthony Joshua could have made upfront money, right, from Al Heyman and PBC, and Eddie Hearn stopped it from going down. He tried to make it like that PBC didn't have the $50 million, that Al Heyman didn't have the $50 million, and why would you listen to some man from Alabama? Y'all remember that? So, I mean, he had Anthony Joshua, right, duck Deontay Wilder, and he thought that Wilder wasn't going to find nobody else to fight. But when he saw that Wilder winning, pulled up Tyson Fury, right, out of the bar or wherever he was, and then that fight started to get a lot of notoriety, and the fans started really getting excited about that fight. What did Eddie Hearn do? He came and he tried to do a smear campaign against Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Told everybody that the fight was going to get canceled, that the fight wasn't going to happen, that they was lying to all the fans, the fight wasn't going to take place, right? All because he was left out in the cold, right? Because he did dirty business and wouldn't let his fighter take the biggest payday of his career. And so that's just one of the times that Eddie Hearn has hated on somebody else's fight that really had nothing to do with him. You feel me? He has a history of doing this. He did it in the second Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fight. Told everybody that fight wasn't going to take place. That fight wasn't happening, right? And then y'all know, during the third Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fight, he was running around telling everybody, oh no, it's not going to happen. Deontay Wilder has no case. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, that fight is signed, sealed, and delivered, and we already got a date for that fight in the venue and everything. That fight is guaranteed to happen, right? So Eddie Hearn, he come off like a bitter female a lot of times when it's a big fight that the fans want to see that he's not involved in. And he gets to hating on it. Now, one thing I hate is when a man tries to tear down something else that another man has going on just to try to uplift what he has going on. And that's exactly what Eddie Hearn is doing now. We all know that Terence Crawford and Errol Spence is the biggest fight in boxing. The fight that all the fans want to see. It's going to sell out and it's going to do great numbers. But if you ask Eddie Hearn is telling you, oh, the general public don't want to see this fight. It's not a high demand for this fight. This fight between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford is not going to make no money. Now you might ask yourself, why is Eddie Hearn trying to tear down Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight? Because it has nothing to do with him. Well, like I said, Eddie Hearn has a history of this. And he's doing it because he has Triple G and Canelo. The Triple G and Canelo fight, nobody was calling for this fight. Yeah, that's the fight that the general public was not calling for. The general public wasn't asking for Triple G and Canelo Alvarez third fight. Like I said, that fight should have happened way back in 2018. Now you got a 40-year-old Triple G that's coming in, fighting at a weight that he's never fought before, and you got Canelo Alvarez that's coming off a loss. It's not a high demand for this fight, but Let Eddie Hearn tell it. He's telling you that the general public is not calling for Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. The general public want to see Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin. That Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin is going to do 5 times the numbers that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford do. That is going to be bring in 5 times the amount of money that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford is going to bring in. Now, the last time I checked, when Canelo Alvarez had pay-per-views on DAZN, y'all didn't even report the numbers, right? The last time that we've seen DAZN report any numbers with Canelo Alvarez was, well, I can't remember because they never did. Because when Canelo Alvarez started fighting on DAZN, his numbers dropped drastically, right? His numbers dropped drastically. And remember, Eddie Hearn told y'all, oh, pay-per-view is dead. I'll never do a pay-per-view. We'll never do pay-per-view over here at DAZN because it's dead. All you gotta do is pay $9.99 a month and you'll get to watch all the fight over here on DAZN. Then what did they do? Then they raised the price. They raised the price on you. And then they raised the price again. And then they told you, you know what? We are gonna do pay-per-view. So you gotta pay your monthly subscription, which is now $20-something a month. And you gotta pay for the pay-per-view on top of that. But then they tell you that they would never do pay-per-view. Yeah, so Eddie Hearn is trying to tear down Terence Crawford and Errol Spence pay-per-view. And he thinks that's gonna help him sell Canelo Alvarez and old-ass Triple G. A fight that's been played out, that nobody was calling for, right? The only reason anybody is going to watch this fight is because Canelo Alvarez has a big fan base. But you telling people that this fight is going to generate 5 times the amount of money that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford generate. Well, if that's so, why don't you put out Canelo Alvarez's last pay-per-view numbers that he did? Why don't you put out his last 2 pay-per-view numbers that he did on DAZN? Because the last time that we know of Canelo Alvarez, right, in his pay-per-view numbers, it wasn't with DAZN, right? It was with PBC when he went over there and fought Caleb Plant. They put the numbers out. They didn't have no problem telling you how much Caleb Plant and Canelo Alvarez sold. But DAZN, they still haven't put the numbers out for Bivol and Canelo Alvarez. And they still haven't put the numbers out for Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo Alvarez. So when Eddie Hearn is running around here trying to tear down the Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight to make his fight seem like it's the end-all be-all and it's the fight that everybody want to see, and Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G is going to do astronomical numbers, it's all a lie, right? We don't believe you, Eddie Hearn. And you need to mind your own business. You don't hear Steven Espinoza running around here telling you, oh, Canelo Alvarez and Triple G, it ain't gonna do this, it ain't gonna do that. Everybody wants to see Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. They not worried about what Canelo Alvarez is doing over there with DAZN, because that's none of their business. Just like what Errol Spence and Terence Crawford is doing is none of your business. What you should have done is you should have kept it G. You should have just been like, hey, I wish them the best. I hope they do great numbers. But right now, I'm focused on Canelo Alvarez and Triple G. But see, you can't do that because you got a whole lot of hate in your blood. And you are a crook. You a crook, right? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would still be pissed off at you to this day for messing up my bag with Deontay Wilder. You know what I'm saying? And so, like I said, man, you can't listen to shit that Eddie Hearn says. Eddie Hearn, he has a history of doing this, trying to tear down other fights that have nothing to do with him to try to make his fight look like it's just everybody is calling for the fight that DAZN is putting on, that Matchroom is putting on. Bruh, don't nobody care about Triple G and Canelo Alvarez. Nobody really cares about that fight. What validity does that fight hold in the 168-pound weight division? This is just a throwaway fight for Canelo Alvarez. right? Because, like I said, Triple G's never fought at 168. Nobody was calling for that fight. Matter of fact, the fight that everybody's been calling for Canelo Alvarez to fight is a fighter that you don't have nothing to do with. His name is David Benavidez. Another fighter is Jamal Charlo. And you don't have the rights to name one of them fighters, right? They're promoted by PBC. That's what you're mad at. You know what I'm talking about? Nobody cares about Triple G and Canelo Alvarez, really. Triple G and Canelo Alvarez ain't gonna do nowhere near the numbers of Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. The gate price, I guarantee you the gate is not gonna do nowhere near the numbers of Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. You feel me? But Canelo Alvarez, he can hold his own because he has a very big fan base. But this fight ain't it. And let me know what y'all think about the latest words that Eddie Hearn had in regards to Errol Spence in the Terence Crawford fight, saying that the general public is not calling for this fight. This fight is not going to generate no money, and Canelo Alvarez and Triple G is going to do 5 times what Errol Spence and Terence Crawford do. Y'all hit my like button. Y'all already know how I do it. There you go, talking that boxing again, and I'm gone.